Hello, boys and girls, and welcome back. This is Mrs. Burkholder, and I'm excited to continue to teach you more and more about frogs and toads. So last time we talked a little bit about where you would find frogs and toads. This time we're going to get into more about what they eat and their life cycle. So we did get to see some cool frog eggs that Mrs. Mishler had, and that was super exciting. We're going to actually follow her and see some more stages of a frog. All right, so let's talk about what they eat. They are carnivores, so this means they eat meat, okay? So their favorite snacks are flies, mosquitoes, moths, and even dragonflies. This is a dragonfly right here. Actually, they help keep insects from spreading diseases and help make sure we don't have too many. So if you can imagine going outside, and if we didn't have frogs and toads, sometimes, like where I live close to the water, so sometimes it gets really, really buggy. So there's lots of like mosquitoes flying around. But if we didn't have frogs and toads, it would be even worse. And I would get bug bites all on my arms all the time in the summer. They always try to get me on my head and my face. And I swell up real big. So that wouldn't be as enjoyable to be outside. So we can thank the frogs and toads for that. So parts of a frog. All right, so this is a good diagram of a frog. Right here is his head, his nostrils, his mouth, his eyeball. And with frogs, their eyes kind of bulge out a little bit more than toads. Here is his ear, his torso. So we have a torso too. It's basically just where your belly is. Okay, this is your torso. So that's kind of the same thing on a frog. This right here is his torso. His hind legs, good for jumping, and his forelegs and his webbed feet. So that is our frog. Our parts of a toad. So this is kind of complex. It was hard for me to find a picture that wasn't as complicated, but we're going to just go ahead and talk about the main parts of a toad. So warty skin. So it is a myth you cannot get warts by holding a toad. But when they say warty skin, that means it's dry skin. Okay, so toads are drier, bumpier. Right here we have the eardrum or the ear. The eyeballs and nostrils right here. You can't really see them a little bit. And then the mouth. Okay, he also has webbed toes, but there's one other little thing that he has. It is called a parotoid gland. So this is actually, he can secrete poison. Okay, so let's get into this a little bit. I don't want to worry you. Toads are not poisonous. As in Pennsylvania, we don't have toads that are really poisonous. So we have one, which is the pickerel toad, that can secrete his poison, but he's not going to hurt you. It might irritate you if that would happen, but he's not going to harm you as far as making you sick and have to go to hospital really bad, like really, really sick. It might be irritating. He gives this off for other animals as his defense mechanism. Okay, the life cycle of a frog or toad. So we're going to put this together because frogs and toads are very similar in their life cycle. Yep, just like what I said. They go through a process called metamorphosis. Wow, that's a big word. This is just a big word for saying as they grow up, there are many different stages. Okay, here we go. Let's talk a little bit about the life cycle. So we have our eggs or spawn, and this is a vocabulary word, egg spawn. We have female frogs lay their eggs in water, which we actually got to see last video, okay? And the next one is called a tadpole. So tadpoles hatch from the eggs. They swim and breathe using gills. So this is what happens. They're going to start out as eggs. So female frog is going to lay eggs in the water, and then they become, after they hatch, they become these little tadpoles. And you can see they don't have legs yet. Next, at the 6th week, external gills disappear and the tadpole breathes air with lungs. Do we have lungs? We do. Can you breathe underwater with lungs? I can't. So this means that the tadpole is going to have to breathe outside of the water. So they're starting to spend some of their life outside of the water now. So after this, at 8 weeks, the hind legs form. This looks kind of silly, huh? Tadpole with legs. Yes. And actually for toads, instead of a tadpole, it's called a toadpole. Okay, so at 12 weeks, the front legs form and the tail shrinks and the froglet can leave the water. Okay, so he's leaving the water more. He still has this little tail. I don't know if you ever saw a froglet before, but they still have a little tail. It looks kind of silly because he still has legs and he looks like a frog, but he has this tiny little tail. So this is our froglet, which is another vocabulary word. And then once he develops a little more, the frog's tail is totally absorbed into the body. So it goes, just goes up into the body. And then the frog is living on land. But remember, frogs live close to the water, and then toads live more on land than frogs do. Okay, so lots of fun stuff to learn about. We are going to check in now and see some things with Mrs. Mishler. So let's go ahead and do that.
Hi kids! We managed to bring our tadpole spawn back to the house. We put it in a nice glass container so they have plenty of room to move around. And as you can see, we have a few tadpoles that have hatched already. They're very small, but they're moving around. Something really important for raising tadpoles at home is to make sure that they have some algae and some leaves and some debris that you have collected in your pond water, so they have some things to eat while they're still little. As they grow, their diet will change, and we'll tell you a little more about that in just a minute. We have some tadpoles that have grown and are about a month old now, and you can see those tadpoles in just 1 minute. So we've gone from this stage, the egg sac stage, into the tadpoles being born. These tadpoles are just about a week old, and we have a second container of tadpoles that are now a little over a month old. So you can see the difference in the size. Mesa's actually going to show you in her hand what they look like. Taking care of tadpoles at home is really quite easy. Now that the tadpoles have grown, their diet is changing. They're beginning to eat new foods, not just algae and plants from the pond water, but they're starting to eat things that you can gather from around your house. One thing that's really easy to find is cat food. We crunched up some cat food and we'll give them a little pinch of that once a day. They also like to eat fish food, and a few little flakes a day is good nutrition for them. Another thing to keep in mind is tadpoles need fresh water. So twice a week, visit the pond that you got the tadpoles at and collect a new bucket full of fresh water for them.